Virtual spaces and communities are becoming more prevalent as a tool and space to access social and educational tools, support, and resources among people with disabilities. A simple dictionary definition defines community as a group of people living together that share common interests. With the introduction of modern forms of communication technologies, like the internet, communities no longer have geographical limitations. People are now able to maintain and develop social networks beyond their immediate locality and are more easily able to maintain these relationships over great distances. Analysts have debated about whether the internet is weakening communities by leading people away from meaningful in-person contact, or enhancing community by adding a new means of connecting with existing relationships. It is now understood that the internet adds on to existing means of communication, increasing the overall volume of contact and connections by providing new and faster ways to communicate. The internet, like other radical technologies, contributes to a reduction in the limitations of space. Studies have found that it greatens the number of ties of communication within the existing foci of activity. While internet use has the potential to displace other forms of social contact, for the most part the internet has supplemented other means of communication rather than displace them. The unique disembodied characteristic of virtual space and virtual communities has the power to alleviate isolation and encourage inclusion, self-esteem, empowerment, and control for people with disabilities. People with disabilities face many oppressive concerns based on mobility, access, and accessibility in everyday life.
My name's Paul David Gray and I've got ME. If I didn't have the internet, then it would completely take away my link to the outside world. I'm housebound with this illness, so I use it for shopping, paying bills, and also researching on my illness. It's up-to-date information. I can keep in touch with people, which is important considering I'm housebound and light sensitive, so I can't get outside much, even on a good day, and I can just keep in touch with people.
People in virtual communities do just about everything people do in real life, but they leave their bodies behind.
In the virtual world known as Second Life, many people love to dance through their online personality known as an avatar. One such avatar is Gentle Heron.
I've got lots of friends in there. I've got friends from all over the world and different kinds of people. It's really fun.
In her everyday life, Gentle Heron is Alice Krieger, who has multiple sclerosis.
And here in this life, I'm pretty much confined to my home. Mostly I'm just in this room, and so I don't see adults. I don't get to talk to people. It's really nice to be able to go out and dance. I love dancing.
The most interesting aspect of online communication for the disabled is the ability it affords the user to hide aspects of him or herself. For people with disabilities, online communication may allow the removal of their handicap from the forefront of interaction.
Dubin is a neuroscientist and former University of Colorado professor in the real world, and he now designs virtual reality tools. He says that real-life feel of Second Life comes with manipulating an avatar.
You move, it moves. It does what you do. Feel like you're there. Literally, your brain will show activity that is activity typical of what the avatar is actually doing.
This makes Second Life a great place for learning virtually anything. Dubin says that Second Life can change the isolation that often comes with disability into friendships and fun. More than 70 English language groups assist people with disabilities or health issues through Second Life, and there are many support groups in other languages.
Much the way that medical and other forms of technology have improved the physical functioning of people with disabilities, information and communication technologies have been viewed as tools that enable people with disabilities to escape the isolation and stigma that sometimes accompany their disabilities. Internet access has been shown to improve how individuals with disabilities evaluate their level and quality of communication with others and their sense of independence and self-determination.
I'm always dependent on others. Take books, for example. When I read a book, I need someone to turn the pages, or I need an expensive page-turning machine. This is no longer true with the Internet. I can get the information I need at any time by myself and talk to old friends whenever. Not everybody has the time to come for a visit.
Online communication allows the individual with a disability to encounter and interact with others to a degree that may not be possible offline. However, not all individuals with disabilities go online, and there are substantial barriers preventing them from doing so. It depends on the availability and the accessibility of the technology.
Hi, my name is Wang Yuan. I am back from the United States where I studied, lived, and worked for nearly 20 years. While I was in the US, I worked as a mental health and substance abuse social worker. I made many friends and enjoyed working with professionals in America. In Singapore, I have been looking for a job everywhere because I am deaf. Lack of access puts serious restrictions on my personal and professional growth. Both the members of deaf and hard of hearing and disabled communities in Singapore face several obstacles in their path to their personal and academic, social, and professional achievements. We could consider having a similar law in Singapore for interpreting services. 24-hour relay services, accessible locations, transport subsidy, equal job opportunities, and much more.
Like Wan Yuwen, people with disabilities are increasingly demanding equal access to the full range of community resources, information, and opportunities. Disability per se does not have to be a barrier in gaining an education, taking part in civil, political life, raising a family, or engaging in paid or unpaid work. Not having the ability to access the internet as a disabled person offers many disadvantages and closes opportunities for a better quality of life, as discussed earlier. In an in-depth study conducted in China, it is clear that the disabled living in rural communities are the ones without access. One of the most significant characteristics of disabled users is that most of them, 89.3%, live in cities, while only 10.7% live in rural areas. Living in rural areas makes it much less likely for disabled people to use the internet. The huge gap between urban and rural areas in terms of economic development accounts for this highly skewed geographical distribution. The study also found that disabled people who are well educated and financially supported and who have obtained internet-related knowledge are more likely to use the internet. Living in urban areas also increases the likelihood of accessing the internet. In contrast, disabled people who have less education and live in rural areas are less likely to access the internet. Here exists a number of socio-economic barriers, such as lack of telecommunication systems, not unique to the people with disabilities. What has been made clear here is that the internet does not appear to be a miraculous technology that can universally compensate the deficit facing people with disabilities. Embedded in the larger social reality, the positive effects of the internet are limited to those who are well educated, live in urban areas, and have learning support. It is these constraints that cleave a divide between those who are internet users and those who are not. It is also these constraints that make disabled people who cannot access the internet even more socially marginalized and discriminated against. It is the entrenched social disadvantages facing persons with disabilities, in this case China, including limited access to education and employment, that has hindered community and social development. These basic social disadvantages lie at the heart of the digital divide. As a means of bridging this divide, greater internet access is necessary, but not totally sufficient. It is the total infrastructure and economic education growth in these areas that will support viable internet access to both the disabled and the able-bodied rural population.